Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and today we're going to take a look at 3 of the best AirPod clones on the market and work out which one is best for you. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so we've got 3 lots of AirPod clones here today. Now we've got the i10 TWS, we've got the i12 TWS, and we've also got the LK-TE8, which is effectively the i13 TWS. Let's get on with this. So these are my 3 favourite AirPod clones. Now, all for slightly different reasons, and they all have slightly different features which make them slightly unique. Now, it's always been a thing of technology that things progress, but how much have things progressed between these 3 models? So let's take a closer look at all 3 and see what the main difference is and the differentiating factors are of these 3 great AirPods. Okay, so let's take a close-up look at these in their individual rights. So let's start with the i10 TWS. Now the i10 TWS is probably the first and, in my opinion, probably the best of the set for various reasons. Although there are some factors which actually make it one of the worst. So first of all, the actual look and design is very, very similar to the original AirPods, which is obviously a massive selling point. The downside being is the LEDs on the front, which obviously the original AirPods would not have. So if you pull these out of your pocket, people immediately know that they're not genuine AirPods, and you lose some of that credibility and you get put straight into the poor zone. But realistically, most people probably won't see the case, so it shouldn't be a problem. When you actually go to take the AirPods out, the pods themselves actually do look pretty much like one-for-one clones of the original, which is what it's all about. So you've got the black dot on the inside of the bud, and you've got the dot on the outside of the bud, and also you've got the touch sensors. So pretty much everything is exactly as it should be for a Apple AirPod. So that's the i10 TWS. These are, in my opinion, probably the closest looking AirPods to the original. But the case lets it down a little bit. So let's move on to the i12 TWS. Now the i12 TWS is again a lot closer. You've got the silver badge on the back. You've got the push button, which is very similar to the AirPods. The case itself has no other markings, so for looks, this probably is the most accurate looking case, similar to the AirPods. But when we go to take the actual AirPods out, this is where the difference starts to kick in. Now these are a little bit thicker than the original AirPods, which most people probably wouldn't recognize, but they are slightly bigger. So there is that for it. Also, if you're looking on the outside, the dot is missing on the outside and the dot is missing on the inside. The touch sensor is still there, and the microphone ports are a little bit on the high side to be considered genuine clones. So as far as looks go, the case itself, fantastic, but the AirPods themselves are slightly lacking. So let's go over to the latest contender, the i13 TWS or the LK-TE8. Now this again is very, very similar. So we've got the touch button on the front, which enables the charging. You've also got the metal on the back, which again looks very much like the original AirPods. And for me, these in looks are much, much more similar to the original AirPod. So as far as looks go, and as far as size goes, the closest to the original at the moment, in my opinion, is the i13 TWS, the LK-TE8. So round 1, I would say, goes to the i13s, purely on looks alone, especially for the case. Now the pods themselves is a slightly different matter again. Now you've got the little black dot on the inside, but on the outside the little black dot is missing. So not quite an exact replica, but size wise The size is very good, and again, is very, very similar to the Airpods. So the first round, who do you think? Personally, I think the i10s, the pods themselves, are the closest looking. The case, I would say, is the 13s. The 12 is probably the furthest away from the original. So let's go down to charging. Now for charging, the i10 TWS was one of the first to have the USB Type-C connection. And also these were really good because you could actually use these on a wireless charging plate, which is now being copied by the Airpods too. So as far as these being as close as possible to the original Airpods, these are probably the furthest away due to the fact that they're using the Type-C connector and also wireless charging. Really good features, but not as close enough to the original. So then we get the i12 TWS. Now the i12 TWS did have the lightning connector for charging, so that is a definite plus, especially if you're using Apple devices. You can keep all your connections on one cable. But the one thing we did lose, which is really handy, is the wireless charging. So if wireless charging is a thing for you, then the i12 TWS is probably not the one to go for. But if using the Apple Lightning connector is a definite consideration for you, then these are definitely worth a look. Moving on to the last one, the i13. Now these ones are kind of like an amalgamation. So we get the wireless charging of the i10 built in. We don't get the lightning connector, but we do get a micro USB. So again, not really close enough to be warranted a genuine Apple replacement, but wireless charging, micro USB, for some Android users, these may well be the way to go. So as far as charging goes and flexibility, I think the i10 TWS and the LK-TE8 definitely take the win with their addition of either a USB Type-C or with the micro USB, and also the ability to charge wirelessly on a wireless charging pad. So I would say these two are joint winner, and the i12 probably coming out as being the loser, unfortunately, due to the limited connectivity and no wireless charging, but plus points for the lightning connector. So next of all is obviously going to be usability. Now, when it comes to usability, I'm going to take into things consideration such as Bluetooth, the reliability of the Bluetooth, how quickly it pairs or how easily it pairs. So let's go first of all with the i10 TWS. Now the i10 TWS, when you take these out, straight away they will go into pairing mode and are ready to be connected. Now the way that i10s work, there is a Bluetooth module in one, so it's a master, and the other one works as a slave off of it. So this can actually cause a problem. You can't use them separately, so if you try and use one on its own, it won't. You've got to use both together. And also, if you find yourself in a position where you've got one of the pods covered, then you will actually lose connectivity to the left or right channel, depending which one is covered, which can be a problem. So as far as connectivity goes and usability, for Bluetooth, these I would say are probably the least reliable. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the i12 TWS. Now the i12 TWS had uprated Bluetooth connectivity, and again, these are very good connection, very reliable connection, and also you can use these independently. They will work on their own if need be, so you do get extended battery life. But again, sometimes you do find that the actual quality of the Bluetooth isn't great, and the actual breaking up or disconnecting is actually quite a regular occurrence on these. Certainly better than the i10s, but not quite as good as the i13s, which we'll go on to now. So the i13 is probably got the best of all of the Bluetooth modules built in, which you'd expect being that they are the latest version. So when you take them out of the box, they both power up and they both synchronize with each other and also with your device. These can be used independently of each other, so you can extend your battery life. So if you want to take just one out and leave one on charge, you can do, although there is still a slave and master thing going on here, but it is far more reliable on the Bluetooth connection. Also, if you put these in your ears and you maybe put your hand over your ear to cover it, these actually will be a much stronger signal Bluetooth wise and will keep connectivity a lot longer. So as far as Bluetooth goes, and for connectivity and reliability, I would say the LK-TE8s at the moment are definitely the winner. The next up I would say would be the i12s and the i10s being last. They have been slightly problematic with connectivity and did have a tendency to drop out. So that's the connectivity. Sound quality is what is pretty important with this. And this is where the trade-off is. If you want the sound quality, then you do have to kind of have a trade-off. Now the sound quality wise, I would say the i12 and the i13 are pretty much exactly the same. There's very, very little between the two. The only difference being is there are less dropouts on the i13s. The i10, definitely, the audio quality, despite them being virtually exactly the same size, although you can just about make out there that well, maybe you can, maybe you can't, but the actual opening for the earpiece is actually slightly bigger on the i10. And if we compare it with the i13, it's a little bit bigger, not a great deal in it, not a lot at all. But definitely I would say the i10 TWS is by quite a margin the actual better sounding device. So if sound quality is a definite thing for you, I would definitely go with the i10 TWS over the others at the moment. The sound quality on the i10 is actually very, very close to the original Airpods. The other models, the i12 and the i13, they're not bad, but they're certainly not as good as the i10. So the next thing to do, I suppose it would be, is the options you've got for controlling the devices whilst you're using them. Touch control, all three of the devices, the i10 TWS, the i12 TWS and the i13 or the LK-TE8, all have touch sensitive controls on both earpods. Now the i10 is the one which actually loses out in this particular round because they don't have the option to turn the volume up and down from the AirPods themselves. You get the options to skip tracks and to get Siri or your Android equivalent. You have those options, but the i12 and the i13 are the only ones that actually have the ability so that you can tap them on the left or the right hand side to raise or lower the volume. So for that particular reason, I would say that the i10 TWS comes in last and the i12 and the i13 take the winner in spot for that particular round. So another consideration is going to be battery life. Now battery life is quite important. There are different ways of looking at this. Because the i10 TWS have to be used together, we will take it on the kind of the full charge for both buds. The i12 and the i13 both give you the options for having, for using one pod at a time. So effectively you can double the lifespan of the battery by using just one pod at a time. But for me, I think this is probably an unfair thing. And realistically, most people who are going to be using these AirPods are going to be using both at the same time, which is essentially what they're designed for. So I'm going to take the battery life as being the battery life for both pods at the same time in use. So let's go through. So the i10 TWS, looking at about 1.5 hours to 2 hours on a full charge at moderate volume. The LK-TE8, slightly better at about 2 hours, maybe 2.5 at a push. And the i12 TWS is actually the better one there, with them being slightly bigger and having a slightly better battery or slightly lower battery usage. They creep into the lead by a very small fraction over the i13s. They certainly have, in my opinion, the longest battery life at over 2 hours and getting closer to 2.5, almost 3 hours on a full charge at moderate volume levels. So if battery life is a thing and you're really concerned about that on a single charge, then the i12 is the winner, followed up by the i13 or the LK-TE8, and unfortunately the loser is going to be the i10 TWS. Now you're probably seeing a running pattern here that as the progression of the AirPods has come on from the i10 to the i12, i13s, that things have improved gradually as we've gone through, which is to be expected. So if you're looking for the better technology and you're looking for the better reliability for the Bluetooth, the synchronization, all those kinds of things, then the LK-TE8 is definitely going to be the winner. If you're looking for long battery life, then it's the i12 TWS. And if you're just looking for all-out best sound quality and you're prepared to put up with some of the quirks of the Bluetooth and the pairing mechanism, then the i10 TWS is the one for you. So talking about charging still, the actual charging stations themselves, now this is also a consideration. So with the i10 TWS, when you put the pods in, For me, this is actually the nicest situation. So you put the pods in, each pod has a different section on the lighting, so you know which one has charge and which one doesn't, etc. And also when you plug in the USB cable or you put it onto wireless charging, the dots go up bit by bit to tell you how much charge is actually in the device itself, which is a great thing. So the visual representation for the charging is excellent, and the battery capability of all three of these is actually pretty similar. So it really depends on your needs for charging and keeping an eye on the charging. Also, all three of them will show the battery levels, although not for individual pods, but it will show the battery levels as a combined level for the two pods in your Android or iOS devices. So that's the i10 TWS. The i12 is a little bit less, well, more of a hit and miss thing really. So when you put the pods in, you get the green light flashing to tell you what the approximate battery life is, and also you get the two red LEDs glowing at the bottom, so you know if it's actually making a connection in the bottom of the dock. Again, for some people, not having a visual representation actually on the device when they're in that charging mode is possibly a good thing. If you press the button on the front, again, you don't get any lights on the device itself, but the button is for checking the charge level or the overall charge level. So whilst it's, if you take the pods out and we press the button, it tells you the charging level of the actual device itself, the charging dock. So again, for counting the dots, it's not the greatest setup. I personally much prefer the i10 TWS in this respect. Now the LK-TE8 or the i13 TWS is a similar situation. So to turn on the charging, you press the button on the front and this puts it into charging mode. So you get a blue light on the front, so you can see that it is actually in charging mode. When you put the pods in, you get a red LED, which shows they're charging. Now the red LED on these is actually a lot brighter than on the i12 TWS. So it's a little bit easier to see clearly what is going on. And if you press the button, that turns off the charging mechanism. Now again, in this particular mode, there isn't really any real idea of what is going on or how much charge is actually in the device or what is actually going on. So that can be a little bit confusing. So there is a little bit of guesswork involved in that, but a little bit of guesswork on the battery charging front for a superior Bluetooth response on your device. Maybe that is a kind of trade up that you would consider taking. So the last thing I suppose is the actual build quality. Now all three of these I would say feel pretty much identical in respect to the build quality. All of them have got the really nice snapshot lids. If anything, I would say the i10 TWS is actually probably the least or the more flimsy feeling for the hinge. There's a little bit of a crack to it. I don't know whether that's my particular model. I have tried a couple of these and they all have felt very, very nice, but a little bit on the kind of, you're not sure if it's actually going to break or something. The i12, the hinge actually is very good and it's probably got more of a tendency to snap shut than the other. The i13, again, the hinge is actually very good. There's a little bit of flex there, so there's a potential for damage, but all in all, it snaps shut and is very robust. And I would say that if, without knowing for sure, I would say they're all probably made of exactly the same type of plastic. They all feel very similar and would all be a very, very good alternative to the original Airpods. Okay, so there you go. There are my opinions and my findings on these three of the best, in my opinion, Airpod clones that you can get on the market. Now, I will put links to the individual places that I've got these from. They haven't all come from the same place, just out of kind of complete transparency. This is a completely unbiased review. They've not all come from one company. It's come from various different sources. I just wanted to relay my opinions and my feelings on these three devices. I do get a lot of questions on which people think are the best or which ones would I recommend and why would I recommend them. And essentially, I suppose it comes down to personal preference. If you're a lightning connector kind of person and you want to keep with a lightning connection, you don't want to have lots of different connections around, then I guess the i12 TWS is going to be the one for you. If you're purely into audio and you want the best quality audio, then really you've got to go for the i10 TWS. If you want the most features and the flexibility, then I guess the i13s would be the way to go, with the wireless charging, the micro USB, which works with, there's micro USB connections pretty much everywhere, as there are lightning connections. So I would say for flexibility and reliability, either of these two would be the way forward. But let me know in the comments what you think. Which ones are your favorite TWS AirPods or AirPod clones? Have you got a personal favorite which isn't one of these three? I'll be really interested to know, and it'll be something that I could maybe check out in future videos. So I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To. This has been my 3 favorite AirPod clones on the market right now. Thanks for watching.